I don't know what a best director is, except that someone that stands in the same space with the best actors. I feel that they do the work, and I get to watch. And nothing's better than that.
Welcome, everyone, back to another edition of Let's Take 5, the podcast where we look at one of the greats of cinema and discuss their excellence and range. My name is Eric Martindale.
I'm Austin Luger.
And today we are continuing our Robert Altman 5. The previous films we covered were MASH, McCabe and Mrs. Miller, Nashville. Today we will be covering Shortcuts, and we will wrap up with A Prairie Home Companion. Shortcuts, the 1993 film directed by Robert Altman, is a film much like the other ones about theming and setting and not really too much of a plot going on, but several plots weaving in and out of each other over and over and over and over again. We follow several characters in this film. Andie MacDowell, played by Andie MacDowell, Anne Finnegan. We follow Paul Finnegan, played by Jack Lemmon, Julianne Moore, Matthew Modine, Fred Ward, Chris Penn, Robert Downey Jr., Tim Robbins, Lily Tomlin, Tom Waits, Alex Trebek. There's so many people in this film. It's one of those big, huge ensemble pieces that Robert Altman was known for, particularly with Nashville. And we also saw some of that in MASH, and we'll see it again in A Prairie Home Companion. So typically this part is reserved, and I feel like I've copped out on this several times, so typically this part is reserved for where we sort of summarize the film. And I'm not going to attempt to do that because there's so much going on. Basically, it's the story of all these people's lives. And it takes place in L.A., and...
So something really interesting is, and I wish I had more time for this episode, is that this is based off the book Shortcuts, but the book isn't a novel, it's a short story collection by Raymond Carver. They adapted the whole collection and made it one coherent movie, and that's never how any short story collection is intended, and yet I think it does work here, but I would love to read the book, which actually came with the Criterion DVD, which is fun. I just haven't read it yet. Raymond Carver is a beloved short story writer. We obviously know him best as the guy who's the subject of the play in Birdman. They're trying to make a Raymond Carver play.
Well, yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. My favorite movie of all time. Yep. Moving right along. Not my favorite movie of all time. In case I couldn't catch the sarcasm.
So you have all these different stories because you have the different families, you have the different conflicts, but they blend together, in my mind, in a rather organic way. Not only because they're all set in this California setting, but also you have geography. People are going to run into each other. People who would be friends with these kind of people, and then at the end of the film, there's one incident that affects them all and makes them notice where they are in their lives. Much like another film we're bound to cover.
Mm-hmm. You're referring to Magnolia, I assume.
I am, because in our last episode with Nashville, we go, oh, yeah, this is because Paul Thomas Anderson has famously said that Robert Altman is his favorite filmmaker. And
not surprising.
No, Boogie Nights is his Nashville, basically. Mm-hmm. And this is very much his Magnolia.
Yeah, no, and in those two iterations, mm-hmm. I think that Nashville is a much better film than Boogie Nights. I think Shortcuts is a much weaker film than Magnolia. The event that brings the people together at the end of this film, it doesn't have the pathos and the weight and the majesty that Magnolia sort of has, whereas this is just an earthquake in California is what it ends up being, and we basically watch all these people experience it. It doesn't even bring them together per se, as we just see them at the end of their stories, and it sort of they experience this earthquake.
It weirdly affected me, not in the same way as the moment in Magnolia, but it affected me in the idea that, like, the ground is shaking at their feet, and they move on with their lives. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
well, that's because there is no resolution to any of these stories.
No. But the earthquake did provide a rather cynical ending to one of the stories, where it is actually used to cover up a murder.
Yeah.
Which is horrifying.
Yeah, Chris Penn ends up killing someone in this movie. He was probably one of the few people you actually kind of felt sorry for as the movie was going on, and then, of course, we've seen that before, so he turns on our expectations, and he ends up killing someone towards the end of the film. So yeah, there's a lot of plots being weaved in and out of this film. You got Lily Tomlin, who runs over Andy McDowell's child, who's in the hospital, who's Jack Lemmon's grandfather, and you see how that sort of weaves together. You have Robert Downey Jr., who's a makeup artist, or an aspiring makeup artist in L.A., who knows Chris Penn, who cleans the pool at the place where the singer is, who we follow throughout the play. So, like, we start to see how they're all unconnected in a lot of ways. I don't feel like they bob and weave as good, and I think it lacks a verisimilitude that exists in Magnolia and exists in Nashville. This just feels like they kind of connect, because that's how Robert Altman makes his films. This is a very vanilla film to me. It uses all of Robert Altman's tools. Obviously, Robert Altman, there's a lot of directing prowess being seen. But it's not a lot of directed prowess being seen. There's a lot of great acting in the film. The writing's even good. But at the end of the day, it really doesn't amount to anything. And that's kind of what I was left with. It was a very empty-feeling movie. I can watch movies about miserable characters, which most of these people are, except for, say, Andie MacDowell, who's a miserable actress. So you have all these, and she's beautiful, wonderful. A wonderfully terrible actress. I enjoy seeing her in movies, but she is. So you have all that happening, and Jack Lemmon comes in, and even his charm isn't good enough to save that character. That character's a miserable human being, and you have so much of that happening, and I can deal with that. I can live with that if you also give me a reason to watch it. These characters almost exist as scenery rather than actually characters that move forward, which is what I look for, and what I think we strive for in drama or in any type of story is some forward trajectory. This doesn't feel like that to me. In fact, it seems to run completely contrary to that. Like in the instance with Lily Tomlin's character, who's trying to throw out her longtime drunk boyfriend. In the end, guess what? She's getting drunk with her longtime drunk boyfriend, and the cycle starts again. And if that is the point, that's a very... what's the word I'm looking for here? It's a very, very... It doesn't have the gravitas. It just makes you feel bad. I mean, there are bad endings that have gravitas and have weight. This just feels like this movie never started. And it's the strangeness for me, because my second time watching it, and I really liked it in college, and I still actually like it quite a bit now. But with what you're saying, it's weird, because I just enjoy being in this world, and there's no rational reason to be. I think perhaps because you're watching people with problems, but they aren't problems that, like, damn my soul. It may be just like, you need to walk outside for a second and get a breath of fresh air. I don't feel like a voyeur. They aren't so real that it's uncomfortable. It just, to me, is a nice display of good writing and good acting, and perhaps that makes it too detaching to really recommend to people. But there's just so many just moments that are just really interesting. You get to have, we got like 20 plus actors on our little cheat sheet here, who are all great. Perhaps aside from Andie MacDowell, who I think she's better than she's serviceable.
Chris Penn. I'm not a huge Chris Penn.
Okay, sure.
But there's something just interesting because it has these characters who understand, I think, their characters so well. Jennifer Jason Leigh plays this stay-at-home mom who makes money by sex phone worker.
Yeah, she's a sex phone worker.
Yeah,
I guess.
And
that's what we call it.
What's so great about those scenes is they're not titillating because she's doing chores while doing it. You see just kind of the amazing facade it is, and how and she treats it not as like a burden. It's a job in a way that is just so. It's just great to watch Jennifer Jason Leigh. Like, if she's saying what she's saying, and then the guy seems to have finished early by hanging up on her, she just shrugs, hangs up, and then goes back to make sure her kid's okay. Like, seeing her world was really fresh to me, and to see these other people, to watch just a truly horrible dinner party, not because they're being like Virginia Woolf kind of thing. It's just because they're really just kind of lame people who think the craziest thing they can do is put on some clown makeup.
Yeah.
And still keep drinking until 8 a.m. It's something really just, I don't know.
I kind of liked that scene. I do disagree with you on the Jennifer Jason Leigh stuff just because it didn't seem believable to me. I mean, the babies are screaming. The TV is really loud. Surely at some point one of the people would say something about it. Yeah. And maybe not, but that's literally all I was thinking the whole time I saw those things.
I never thought about that.
Yeah, now Jennifer Jason Leigh, I think, plays it in such a business-like manner. In fact, like I said, as you said, all the acting in this film is great. I have no beef with the acting. I hardly have any beef with Robert Altman's directing. I think everything's done really well. I don't think this movie could have been better than it is. I just don't think it's that good. Like, it's not that bad. It's like, it's just completely unoffensive to me. I didn't feel anything, which is really weird to say because the film, is this the longest film that we cover here? Of the 5 that we covered. I mean, it's 3 hours.
Yeah. It's longer than Nashville.
Yeah, so I think this might be the longest film here.
It's actually over 3 hours.
Yeah, it's over 3 hours, and it just didn't... And it was interesting, because I was always interested, but I never really cared. It's kind of difficult to talk about the film like this, because there's so much in it, which means there's so much in it I didn't care about. And it's like, I don't really even know if I can account for every little moment in the film, because all those moments exist almost as if within vignettes. It's like it's like trying to remember every detail of a party from 5 years ago. Like, I can remember I was there. I can remember a couple people I talked. It's like it's kind of trying to go back and remember that.
There's so many scenes.
There's so many scenes, and the characters' motivations are constantly shifting between each individual scene in a way. I mean, they are building towards something, which is nothing. But so you can't just watch one scene with Matthew Modine, Modine and Julianne Moore, and skip a few and come back. You wouldn't know what was going on, but it just never gave me a reason to care, I guess, was where it came down to. And I thought, in particular, there were two interesting scenes. So let's talk about that for anyone who saw the film. Two interesting scenes that I liked. Both of them constantly had me question I was questioning morals in, I guess, a more biblical sense, whereas I never actually had to question that. I could just watch it in the rest of the film. One is when the fishermen discover the dead body. This is before cell phones exist. They're a day's walk from getting back. Then there's this dilemma of whether or not we bring... She's already dead, so there's nothing we can do about her. So do we let her stay there for a while, or do we walk the day back and tell the police? I liked that. That worked as a dark comedy bit, and I actually quite enjoyed that, and I think Fred Ward's pretty funny. The other scene was when Matthew Modine, I know him, it's in everything. Modine, is in conflict with Julianne Moore about whether or not she slept with... They're married. Gets in an argument with whether she slept with someone at a party a few years back. This is a marriage that's obviously ending. It's a very artistic scene because you have but not titillating too. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. You have Julianne Moore there, is a beautiful woman, is completely naked, arguing with him about, no, why do you want to know this?
Well, she's Donald Ducking it.
Okay, sure.
No pants. Yeah.
No pants. Okay, she's Donald Ducking it, and she's arguing with him about whether or not he's jealous, he's controlling, yada yada yada. And he's trying to say, I know you slept with this guy back then. Let's just admit it now. And alcohol's playing a factor here. And the whole time, I'm thinking, my God, what an asshole. He's really on her. He's being really selfish. And then it's revealed that no, she did sleep with him. So then I'm like, oh. So he wasn't an asshole, I guess. Yeah. And it's kind of... And that was kind of interesting to me because it was the first time I got a little emotionally invested in this scene and my things got turned on their head. Other than that, there's huge big-name stars in this movie. I don't really care what they're doing. Robert Downey Jr., I don't give a fuck what his character's doing.
Well, that guy has, he is there to serve other people's plots, which means he can just be young Tony Stark in all the scenes.
Yeah, and granted, he wasn't as famous when this movie was made, but
he was doing well. I think he's more like become popular like behind the camera, not like directing wise, just like drunk.
Yeah.
But the thing with the Julianne Moore scene, which is to me, I think probably still the most famous scene of the movie.
I think it has to be, right?
Yeah, it's so good, and because it uses nudity in a really interesting way, because at this point we've established kind of where she is as an artist, and there's all these paintings of her that are naked.
She's a nude painter.
And it's something that Matthew Modine is supportive of to an extent, and he's clearly uncomfortable that all the paintings are nudes. Mm-hmm. There's no, like, watercolors of a bridge.
And all that ties back to that night where he thought she slept with someone else.
Right. And so, at the very beginning of the scene, he attacks her paintings again, and then I think she uses her own nudity to attack him and to distract from she's about to reveal how right he is.
Yeah.
Like, it's such a great thing, because, like, I mean, I don't think it was a planned thing, but like, something spills in her dress. She has to switch her dress for the people who arrive, so she's just changing clothes. Mm-hmm. But that insistently, like when he says, like, put some pants on, she continues to fight almost because she knows she has this window here before she has to put on pants before her guests arrive. That she's just going to like lay it out there. Right?
And then these guests are going to show up who are two people they don't really know that well, that they don't necessarily want to spend time with anyway.
Right.
And you see that on both sides. But they end up having, like, the time of their lives because once that party ends, they have to confront reality.
Yeah.
And that's why that party never ends. And I think that's interesting.
I don't own a barbecue, but if I did, I realize every time I have a party, I have to talk to another male about barbecue. I feel like I can tell that's a standard for all barbecue parties. Yeah. You must talk about the grill and how powerful it is.
And you guys don't look at each other. You just look at the grill. Another complete waste of space in this film was, and this probably being the biggest one, was the Frances McDermott, Tim Robbins plotline. I got a few chuckles out of this, but I can literally say this in 3 sentences. Tim Robbins is cheating on his wife. Mm-hmm. Tim Robbins is cheating on with Frances McDermott. Frances McDermott ends up cheating on him with someone else, so he goes back to his wife. Mm-hmm. That's it. Guess what? That's about 35 minutes.
Well, in case you didn't know that Tim Robbins was an asshole, he took a puppy out of a kid's arms.
That, by the way, like I said, I got a few laughs out of it for sure.
Because he is an asshole.
Oh, he's horrible.
An unrepentant asshole. Like,
he's such an asshole, his wife is literally laughing at how bad of a liar he is and how big of an asshole he is. It's funny, but again, I'm like, what did that have to do with anything? Like, it's so weird, because that does not really connect with anything else in it. It was cool seeing Frances McDermott that young. I don't think I've seen her in a movie pre-1993, so...
No, I mean, this is, Fargo is 2 years later from this?
Yeah. She's lovely.
There's only one scene I laughed at, because, like, earlier on we were talking, you mentioned that it's a comedy drama. I always saw it as a drama, like, 100%. Except one dark comedy scene really did get to me, and it was when two plot lines very unexpectedly collide when they're picking up their photos from the
that was
the Walgreens kind of thing, and they got the wrong ones.
They both think they're murderers.
Murderers, yeah, because you have Robert Altman Jr. and Lily Taylor, made up this this artistic piece, of him trying out makeup of like what looks like a beaten woman.
A dead beaten woman.
A dead beaten woman. and Jack Lemmon has these photos of a dead naked woman in a lake. And they both their photos. And then they both just like realize what they have in the parking lot, stare at the other ones, swap the photos, and then memorize the license plates of the other guy.
It wasn't Jack Lemmon. It was one of the people on the fishing trip with Fred Ward.
It was Jack Lemmon in the parking lot with them who had the photos.
He may have... Did he? I'm pretty sure it was the one fisherman guy with the glasses. Why would Jack Lemmon have the picture of the dead body in the water?
I found it like suspicious that maybe he actually was part of the dead girl thing.
I don't think it was Jack Lemmon. We'll have to put a Venmo dollar bet on it.
All right. Let's rewatch the film from the beginning.
Exactly, because this is literally a minute, 2 hour.
Yeah. But that scene was so good, and I want to talk a little bit about Robert Altman's direction, because I think. I'm not actually going to look this up, but I think this is actually one of our biggest gaps in covering somebody.
Oh, yeah, probably. Between Nashville and Shortcuts, yeah.
The first 3 are all in the 70s, and they're all really early on in his career. The 80s weren't kind to Robert Altman. He made a bunch of films that were quiet, no one saw them, or big failures like Popeye. And he kind of was bit down for the count, kind of disregarded until early 90s with The Player, where everyone went Altman's back. And people loved The Player. My memory is that I actually like Shortcuts more than The Player, so we covered this one instead. But yes, now Robert Altman is on an uptick basically for the rest of his career. He'll still have a couple of duds in the critic's eye and the public's eye, but from here on out, he's going to have a couple films.
And sometimes a dud in the public's eye, but not in the critic's eye, and vice versa, as we'll see with Prairie Home Companion.
Sure. But so it's interesting now, like, if the 70s were him as a young filmmaker, he's crazy, he's going to reshoot half of McCabe and Mrs. Miller, the whole tavern, everyone is talking at once, film something. This very much feels like there is a script, which you can't promise for the last three films. Those three undeniably have structure and like very clearly written lines. But
I think MASH even more loosey-goosey than McCabe and Mrs. Miller. I feel like that's the most
absolutely
succinct film.
This one it's so interesting because like it is an older filmmaker and it still feels like a really strong Altman film in terms of just kind of the way the characters interact. You still got a bit of the dialogue elements. We'll see it more next week, I think. But it just like it impressed me. Like when you have, I mean, so many of these scenes take place in these homes, and most of them are really normal-looking homes. Only a few characters are rich, but the way the camera just kind of glides through some rooms, people can talk in the other room. We wouldn't have seen that before, I think.
Oh, you mean in his previous work? Yeah, and I think Shortcuts, based on like it being the same type of film as like a MASH or a Nashville, because of how the characters are running together and how loose sweet that all is. I think the fact that it is more structured with a better script hurt it. It just did. Like Nashville is more. There's an ambiguity to Nashville that doesn't exist in Shortcuts. Shortcuts kind of, you feel like it is what it is at the end of it. And what it is a bunch of miserable people, and that's pretty much it. I mean...
They're functioning miserable people, which I think we're not almost used to.
Well, I mean, the only people that really aren't miserable people are Andy McDowell, who plays Ann Finnegan, and Bruce Davison, who plays Howard Finnegan, the husbands who lose their son in the film. But the difference being, okay, these are the two people that aren't miserable people that are in misery.
Yeah, they are in misery.
So that's kind of, so there was no real escape from it. And also there's a sci-fi plot going on in this film about medflies. And then bombing mosquitoes to worry about the fly. What's with that? So I assume it's a product of cramming all the short stories together.
I guess so. I think also just, I don't know, a comment on LA culture.
Yeah, and I like Tim Robbins is trying to throw the dog outside while they're bombing the medflies, so that the gas to kill the bugs will kill the dog as well.
No, I think he just didn't believe the science or give a fuck. Like, remember
but he wants the dog to go away because...
But he stands out there, too, going like, it's fine, look, I'm drinking it.
That's true, too. But he thinks the dog knows that he's having an affair, which is... So that's why he wants to get rid of the dog, because the dog hates him, and he thinks it's because he knows he's having an affair, which is hilarious, because his wife knows he's having an affair. He's not fooling anybody.
No.
So...
Tim Robbins, if you haven't seen this film, imagine he is a character from Crash that actually doesn't care about race. He's just a horrible cop.
He's a bad person.
Yeah.
He does have a puppy ride sidecar, which is pretty cool on a motorcycle. I mean, this is a movie that honestly, this hasn't happened often on the show. I don't really recommend it. I just don't. It's too long. It's too big of. It's going to take up too much of your time, and I don't feel like you're going to enjoy the film all that much. That said, I do think, and that's to a casual viewer or whatever. Mm-hmm. I mean, it being a Robert Altman film, I mean, there is enough here to be culturally significant. At that point, I say, yeah, go ahead. It wouldn't probably make my Altman top 5 films. But
upon rewatch, I don't think it will now either. But I still like quite a bit. I think there's a lot there. I want to. Honestly, I just feel like this movie reminded me about halfway through. I go, I've never actually read Raymond Carver. Like, I've known the name. I've seen other adaptations by him.
I don't either. So
I was like, I think I should, like, try him out. I don't know if that will give me a greater appreciation of the film or not. The film still will stand on its own. But, I don't know. There's something still worth watching here. It is very long, but it's also one of those things where we would say, make it 3 times longer. That's a pretty good TV show.
Well, I think it would probably be better as a TV show.
I'd watch that on Amazon.
It goes quickly. I mean, it never feels long. It goes quickly because all the character vignettes don't last long enough on screen for you to get tired of seeing them. Mm-hmm. And because you keep jumping back and forth, there's a constant feeling of progression and movement that, like, guess, ding, 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 P.T. Anderson, really famous for, particularly with Magnolia and Boogie Nights, and even more so in Magnolia. That's a movie that's 3 hours and, 20 minutes long, but is constantly keeping pace. I mean, I think he borrows both from Altman there, keep all the scenes moving, jumping back and forth, and from Kurosawa. I think using Seven Samurai, the bass drum, the boom, 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 constantly just feeling like, we're keeping pace and moving, which is, what this film does as well. It's just not as good as those films.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right, so that is Shortcuts. It is currently on the Criterion Collection, but not on Filmstruck as of this taping, but maybe it'll be on there later.
Is it on Blu-ray Criterion?
It is.
Okay, I was wondering if they lost the rights to it because I hadn't seen it.
It's on Blu-ray. I happen to have had the DVD I got from Half Price Books many years ago.
Yeah.
And then my dog ate the box, which means I should upgrade. So, anyway, you should check out that movie, or don't, either way. Mm-hmm. But you can come back next week when we are going to be discussing the final film in our Robert Altman 5, A Prairie Home Companion, which is his final film. Until then, you could leave a comment at theartofmore.com. While you're there, you can check out the other podcasts, including The Immortals, which has not reviewed Shortcuts, but has reviewed Magnolia way back when. But yesterday, we had kind of an all-star lineup for episode 89, where we reviewed Return of the Jedi, Public Enemy, Lemony Snicket, and Robot Chicken.
Wow.
I know, that was a good roll.
A lot of name brands there. I know how much you love Return of the Jedi.
Well, we have a 40-minute discussion about it.
Yeah.
And I am not alone in my opinion.
Okay, good.
It's good stuff. Also, Sarah says that Westworld's coming out very soon, so look forward to that for Ad Absurdum. You can email us at letstake5 at theartofmore.com, The Immortals Pod on Twitter. Adam Lord, who did our theme, you can find his music at songsbyalord.com. Eric, where can we find you?
Constant Diversion, YouTube channel. That's where you find me.
Sweet. And, yeah, so we'll catch you all next week, everybody. I'm Austin Ligger.
I'm Eric Martindale.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
I did something that day that I'd never done in my life. I didn't tell your mother the truth. Called in sick, and then I left like I was going to work, and I didn't tell your mother I was going over to Ola's house to hook up a new fridge and an ice maker, and she'd have had a fit. I mean, even if she knew that I was getting paid for my time, she would have had a fit. It was okay for her to help Ola. Oh, not for me. See, she was more possessive that way. Yeah, well, sisters are funny, you know. Hell, in this case, I was happy to oblige. I needed the extra money. And it was Ola's idea not to involve your mother. It was Ola's idea for me to lie. I figured, hell, it'll take a couple of hours, and then I'll go to work, tell them I'm feeling better. Anyway, I told Ola I'd be over early, and I was, but there was no answer. So the door was open. I go in. I hear that she's up in the shower, so I holler out, you know, so that she won't get scared when she comes out of the shower and hears me working down in the basement and so forth. Anyway, I go down. After a while, Ola comes down to the basement in a robe. Huh? And she says that she got cleaned up for me. And I think that's very odd to say under the circumstances, but you know, Ola. Anyhow, she says, how's it going? I said, fine. And after a while, she asked me if I wanted a beer. She says, you want a beer? I said, well, geez, it's a little early in the morning for that sort of thing, isn't it? She says, well, I'm not your employer, am I? Do you want one or not? I said, oh, well, what the hell, why not? You know, it seemed like a good idea at the time, right? She comes back with 2 beers. I tell you, every time I finish a beer, boom, there's another one in my hand. Christ, now we're up in the kitchen, and I'm having trouble making the joints, because I'm on my 4th or 5th beer. And I said, Ola, this is exactly what I said. Oh, well, I will never forget this. I said, Ola, if I have one more beer, I'm going to have to take a nap. And she says, I wondered what it would take to get you into bed. Hey. I laughed. She says, don't tell me it didn't cross your mind because I'll call you a liar. Well, I'll tell you the truth. It didn't, ever. Yeah, I found her company attractive, but Jesus, there was no real... And I didn't... I don't know, I didn't want to hurt her feelings, I mean, after all, it was your mother's sister. So, anyway, I don't know how much time passed. All I know is that I am working like hell on that ice maker, trying to get the damn thing going, and she is saying things like, if the positions were reversed, my sister would be doing the same thing. Do you believe? Like this is some little thing between the two of us. I started sweating. I tell you, my knees are shaking. I don't know what the hell to do. I don't know which way to turn.
There's no smoking in here, Pop.
Huh?
No smoking.
That's good. Down to 4 a day. And then, whoosh, she opens the robe, and I get a load. Jesus, God, that woman was put together a hell of a lot better than you'd think when she was just in that dress, I'm telling you. Jesus, that's hard for any man to resist. I mean, I don't know about you, it sure as hell was for me.
Yeah, well, that's a long time ago, Pop.
So? Neither of us heard your mother come in. God almighty. She was in such a state, she didn't really look at Ola. She looked at me and she said, Howard's in the hospital. And then on the way to the hospital, she said, well, she cried a little bit, but she only said, why didn't you tell me that you weren't going to work? They told me you were sick. Oh, Christ, I was so ashamed. It was an unlucky day, bad timing. But I'll tell you, that first day in the hospital, your mother and I stood side by side while those doctors reported to us. And most of the news was bad, but still, we stood there together. We took it together. And then Ola lied. God, Ola told your mother that we'd been having affairs in the past. Oh, hell, it was only that one time. I tried to explain to your mother exactly how it happened to you. You know what your mother said to me? I don't want you around anymore. I'll get through this thing alone. Better. No matter what happens to Howard. I had to respect her wishes, Howard. I mean, whether I want to do it or not, I had to. And Christ, I kept thinking, someday, the truth will come out, and she'll understand. We both know that never happened.